When tech mogul Jason Crawford walked into the boardroom of Innovatech Solutions that crisp October morning, he thought he'd found the perfect acquisition target, a small Filipino-owned company with outdated family-first policies that were clearly dragging down their efficiency. His plan was simple: buy them out, modernize their primitive workplace culture, and strip away what he called their sentimental business practices that prioritized relationships over results. He'd even mocked their tradition of treating employees like family to his investors, calling it third world mentality in a first world market. But as Jason straightened his designer tie and prepared to deliver his acquisition speech, he had no idea he was about to witness a business philosophy so powerful it would expose the emptiness of his own success and leave him desperately seeking what he'd spent years dismissing. Jason Crawford had built his reputation in Silicon Valley as the efficiency expert. At 38, he owned 3 tech companies and prided himself on running lean, profit-maximized operations. His motto was simple: emotions are expensive, results are everything. His latest target was Kapatid Technologies, a family-owned Filipino company that had somehow maintained steady growth for 15 years, despite what Jason considered archaic business practices. Their employee retention rate was an impossible 94%. Their customer loyalty scores were off the charts, but their profit margins looked thin on paper. "It's obvious what's wrong," Jason had told his acquisition team during their flight to Manila. "They're spending too much on employee benefits, too much time on relationships, too much energy on what they call Filipino values. We'll streamline that nonsense out of them in 6 months." The Kapatid Technologies office surprised Jason. Instead of sterile corporate efficiency, he found a warm, bustling environment where employees seemed genuinely happy. Children's artwork decorated the walls, employees' kids who visited after school. A small kitchen area buzzed with activity where staff shared homemade meals. "Mr. Crawford, welcome," beamed Elena Reyes, the company's founder and CEO. At 52, she radiated the kind of calm confidence that came from deep principles rather than aggressive ambition. "We're so honored you're considering partnering with us." Jason cringed internally. Partnership. This was an acquisition, a takeover. But he smiled professionally. "Thank you for hosting me, Elena. I'm excited to see how we can modernize your operations." Elena's smile never wavered, but something shifted in her eyes. She'd built this company from nothing, and she knew exactly what modernize meant in corporate speak. "Let me show you around," Elena offered. "I think you'll find our methods quite interesting." As they toured the office, Jason mentally cataloged inefficiencies. Miguel Santos, the head developer, was spending 20 minutes helping his teammate debug code instead of focusing on his own deliverables. The HR manager, Rosa Martinez, was on the phone consoling an employee whose father was in the hospital, arranging for the company to cover the medical bills. "This is exactly the problem," Jason whispered to his assistant. "Too much time on personal issues. No boundaries between work and life." But then Jason noticed something that made him pause. Despite what he saw as distractions, every project deadline was being met. Customer satisfaction surveys showed ratings he'd never seen in his own companies. The quality of their software was exceptional. During lunch, Elena insisted on eating together in the company dining area rather than a private conference room. "In Filipino culture, sharing a meal is sharing trust," she explained. "How can we do business with people we don't truly know?" Jason checked his phone impatiently. "Elena, I appreciate the cultural experience, but perhaps we could discuss the acquisition terms. I have other meetings." "Of course," Elena replied graciously. "But tell me, Jason, what draws you to our little company? We're so different from your usual acquisitions." Jason launched into his prepared speech about market expansion and operational efficiency, but Elena listened with the kind of focused attention that made him feel actually heard, something he hadn't experienced in years of corporate meetings. "That's fascinating," Elena said when he finished. "But what about your employees? Your customers? How do they feel about your approach?" The question caught Jason off guard. "Feel? Elena, business isn't about feelings. It's about results." "Ah," Elena nodded thoughtfully. "And how are your results? Are your employees happy? Do your customers trust you? Do you sleep well at night?" Jason felt an unexpected discomfort. His employee turnover was 60% annually. His customer retention required constant aggressive sales tactics, and he hadn't slept through the night without medication in 2 years. Those metrics aren't relevant, he deflected. That afternoon brought an unexpected crisis. One of Capitid's biggest clients, an international corporation, was threatening to cancel their contract due to a competitor's lower bid. Jason watched with professional interest to see how Elena would handle the pressure. Instead of panic or desperate counteroffer, Elena made a single phone call. "Mr. Thompson," she said to the client, "I understand you've received a more attractive financial offer. Before you make your final decision, could I ask, how has your experience been working with our team over the past 3 years?" Jason could hear the client's voice soften over the speakerphone. "Elena, you know we love working with you. Your team feels like family. But business is business." "Of course," Elena replied warmly. "And that's exactly why I'm not going to try to match their price. Instead, I want to remind you of something. When your system crashed during the holiday rush 2 years ago, Miguel worked for 72 straight hours to get you back online. He missed Christmas with his own family to save yours. When your company was acquired last year and you were worried about layoffs, Rosa spent her own time helping your employees understand their options. When your daughter graduated, the whole team sent flowers because we know how proud you are of her." There was a long pause. "Elena, Mr. Thompson, we can't always be the cheapest option, but we'll always be the option that treats your success as our own, your challenges as ours to solve, and your people as our extended family. That's not just a business philosophy. It's who we are." The client's voice was emotional when he responded. "Elena, tear up that cancellation notice. We're staying with Capitid. Some things are worth more than money." After the call, Jason stared at Elena in amazement. That was incredible, but also completely inefficient. "You could have just matched their price," Elena smiled. "Jason, what you call inefficient, we call sustainable. That client won't leave us for a competitor because we didn't just provide a service, we built a relationship. That's the difference between having customers and having family." That evening, Elena invited Jason to her home for dinner, another Filipino tradition he initially wanted to decline. But something about the day's events had shaken his usual confidence. Elena's house was modest but warm, filled with extended family, laughter, and the most incredible aromas Jason had ever experienced. Her elderly mother, Lola Carmen, insisted on blessing the meal and specifically welcoming Jason to our family table. "Elena tells me you want to buy her company," Lola Carmen said with a knowing smile. "But tell me, Anak, what will you do with all those children?" "Children?" Jason asked, confused. "Her employees," Lola Carmen explained. "Elena has been their nane, mother, for 15 years. They come to her with their problems. She celebrates their successes. She helps them grow. What happens to children when you take away their mother?" Jason had never thought of employees that way. In his companies, people were resources, not family members. During dinner, Jason's phone buzzed constantly, crisis after crisis from his own companies. A key developer had quit without notice. A major client was threatening legal action over a missed deadline. His HR department was dealing with another discrimination lawsuit. "Excuse me," Jason said, stepping outside to take yet another emergency call. Through the window, he could see Elena's family laughing together, sharing stories, genuinely enjoying each other's company. When he returned, Elena was waiting with a cup of tea. "Tough day at the office?" she asked gently. Jason found himself sharing more than he intended. The constant stress, the employee turnover, the way he had to push harder and harder to maintain the same results, the loneliness of success that came at the cost of human connection. "Jason," Elena said quietly, "can I share something with you? 15 years ago, I could have built Capitid your way. Pure efficiency, maximum profit, minimal emotional overhead. But I watched my father work himself to death in corporate America, always chasing the next promotion, the next achievement. On his deathbed, he told me his biggest regret wasn't the money he didn't make. It was the relationships he didn't build. She gestured toward her family. So I chose differently. I built a company where people matter first, because when people feel valued, they create value. When employees feel like family, they protect the family business. When customers feel loved, they become loyal. But the profit margins, Jason protested weakly, are sustainable, Elena finished. We don't have to constantly recruit new employees. Ours stay. We don't have to constantly find new customers. Ours refer others. We don't have to spend millions on corporate culture consultants because our culture is authentic. That night, Jason lay awake in his hotel room, Elena's words echoing in his mind. He pulled up his company's data on his laptop. The numbers told a stark story. Despite his focus on efficiency, his actual long-term profitability was lower than Capatide's because of constant turnover costs, client acquisition expenses, and crisis management. More troubling was a realization he'd been avoiding. He was successful but not happy, wealthy but not fulfilled, powerful but utterly alone. The next morning, Jason arrived at Capatide's office early, hoping to observe their family dynamic more closely. What he found was Rosa Martinez crying at her desk while Elena comforted her. "I'm sorry," Rosa said, noticing Jason. "My husband was just diagnosed with cancer. I don't know how we'll manage the treatment costs and—" "Rosa," Elena interrupted gently, "you know you're not facing this alone. The company will handle the medical expenses. Take whatever time you need. Your family comes first." Jason watched this interaction with growing amazement. In his companies, Rosa would have been expected to handle personal crises on her own time. But here, he witnessed something unprecedented. Genuine care translating into fierce loyalty. "Elena," Jason said after Rosa left, "can I ask you something? Doesn't this kind of support drain your resources? What if employees take advantage?" Elena's answer floored him. "Jason, in 15 years we've had 2 employees who tried to take advantage of our generosity. 2. Out of hundreds. Do you know why? Because when you treat people like family, they act like family. They protect what they love." She showed him metrics he'd never considered. 0 embezzlement cases, minimal sick leave abuse, voluntary overtime during crises, employees referring qualified friends and family for positions. "Your outdated approach is actually creating unprecedented loyalty," Jason murmured, studying the data. "It's not outdated," Elena smiled. "It's timeless. Filipinos have understood for centuries that real strength comes from community, not competition. We call it capamilia, being family. Not just blood family, but chosen family." That afternoon, Jason received a call that changed everything. His star developer, the one who'd quit his company yesterday, had just been hired by Capatide. "Dave," Jason called the employee directly, "what the hell are you doing?" "Jason," Dave's voice was calm, "I've been working for you for 3 years. You don't know my wife's name, my kids' ages, or what I care about beyond code. Elena spent 2 hours with me yesterday, asking about my dreams, my family, my goals. She offered me the same salary you were paying, but something you never gave me. Respect." The call ended, and Jason stared at his phone. How many talented people had he lost, not because of money, but because of connection? Instead of delivering his acquisition pitch, Jason found himself asking Elena a different question entirely. "Elena, I came here to buy your company and change your culture. But I think I need to learn from it instead. Would you consider consulting for my companies, teaching us your approach?" Elena studied him carefully. "Jason, this isn't just a business strategy you can copy and paste. Filipino culture, the concept of capamilia, it comes from genuine care, not calculated manipulation. Are you prepared to actually change, not just modify your tactics?" Jason thought about his sleepless nights, his revolving door of employees, his successful but hollow existence. "I want to try," he said honestly. "I want to understand what I've been missing." Over the following months, Jason didn't acquire Capatide. He became their student. Elena visited his companies, not as a purchased asset, but as a mentor. She taught his management team about pakikipag kapwa, shared identity, and humaneness. She showed them how investing in employee well-being created, not cost, unprecedented productivity. The transformation wasn't immediate. Some managers resisted, calling it soft and unprofessional, but the results spoke for themselves. Employee satisfaction scores rose dramatically. Customer retention improved. Most surprisingly to Jason, profits increased as turnover costs disappeared and productivity soared. 6 months later, Jason stood before his board of directors, presenting annual results that exceeded all projections. The secret, he explained, wasn't eliminating what I called emotional inefficiencies. It was recognizing that emotions, genuine care, authentic relationships, treating people as family, these aren't inefficiencies. They're the most efficient business strategy of all. After the meeting, Jason called Elena. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I came to the Philippines thinking I would teach you about modern business. Instead, you taught me about timeless humanity." "Jason," Elena laughed, "that's exactly what Kapamilya means. We learn from each other. We grow together. Welcome to the family." 2 years later, Jason's companies had become case studies in business schools worldwide. His Filipino-inspired management philosophy had been featured on magazine covers and conference stages. But the real measure of success was simpler. He slept through the night, knew his employees' children's names, and had built something sustainable rather than just profitable. He still visited Elena's family in Manila quarterly, not for business, but because they had become his chosen family. Lola Carmen still blessed every meal and still called him anak, son. At his daughter's wedding, an event he almost missed in his previous life due to work, Jason gave a speech that brought the house down. "I used to think Filipino culture was outdated because it prioritized relationships over results. I was wrong. Filipino culture is timeless because it understands that relationships are the result. Everything else is just profit and loss statements." His daughter hugged him afterward. "Dad, I'm so proud of the man you've become." Jason smiled, thinking of Elena's words that had changed his life. When you treat people like family, they act like family. They protect what they love. He had learned to love, and in return, he had found a family he never knew he needed. If this story moved your heart, please like and subscribe for more inspiring tales of how ancient wisdom can solve modern problems. Share your thoughts below. Have you ever discovered that what you thought was outdated was actually timeless? Where are you watching from today? Remember, sometimes the very traditions we dismiss as primitive contain the solutions to our most sophisticated problems. Share this with someone who needs to remember that success without relationships is just sophisticated failure. Until next time, keep your heart open to learning from every culture, every tradition, and every person who might just change your life. Mabuhay!